Hello, this
All right.
is Rob Klaus with the Certified Commercial Property Inspectors Association, and we're having once again a Building Your Business series. And today we're lucky enough to have Levi Nelson, the InterNACHI logo designer and illustrator extraordinaire. And as far as our industry goes, he's the supreme expert at logo creation. So welcome, Levi.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, yeah. I'll touch you up before we kick you in the knees or whatever. You know, build up before we take it apart. Um, Before we get too far along, you know, people are going to be watching this and they're going to say InterNACHI. Well, the CCPIA and InterNACHI are two different associations. They're two different memberships. They're two different entities, but we share some of the same resources, same building, same executive management. And then I get to lean on some talents of excellent people like yourself, Levi. So welcome.
Thank you.
Um, with that, we're going to go through and talk about marketing today, and very specifically the grasp and first visceral look that you have on a company is the logo. And you create a lot of logos for InterNACHI members. And some InterNACHI members are also CCPA members, which is not mutually inclusive. But tell us a little bit about the process that InterNACHI has with logo creation.
Yeah, no problem. I actually had already set up. I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen right away.
Excellent.
Um, because I want to, let's see. Oh, you have to allow me to share the screen, I
I
guess.
have to allow. Now I got to work with technology.
Yeah, yeah. Tech bugs.
Uh, there. Let's see if that works.
All right, perfect. I think that should work. Let me
Aha! Look at this.
I'm going to go through my just the logo questionnaire that we send out up front. And I'm going to run through some of this stuff is straightforward, like what's your name? Like the people we're going to be emailing, like what is your email? How do we contact you? As always, be important you spell this stuff correctly because when you have to scramble, it results in delays.
So garbage in is garbage out.
Exactly. So the questions that you might have more questions about that probably aren't as descriptive as because they have to be short are one of the first questions is which style of logo would you prefer, modern versus more classic. For something like a commercial inspection company, I would recommend leaning more modern, just because they tend to be for more of a broad audience, and can leave you open for both home inspections and commercial inspections.
So
And
you're
also,
thinking having the dexterity of being able to have one logo that operates both sides of the house versus I've got a logo that I created strictly for residential, then I've got a second logo strictly for commercial, and
yeah,
I got to kind of be a little bit all over the board then.
yeah. If you want to be in commercial inspections and home inspections, it's better just to start with something that is more broad and doesn't trap you into one specific industry. Like
Excellent.
if you just put a house over text, what you're communicating is that's the thing you do from the get-go visually. So with something more modern like the letterform logo, and I'll go into the styles of logos a little bit later, but
Good.
with something more clean cut, that leaves you more open to things like embroidery, because the logo will scale well. So if you're going to do shirts for like more than one person, the more basic the logo is, the easier it is to work with for larger scale projects.
Well, it's interesting
Um,
because most people don't think about that. You know, they're thinking, oh, what's my letterhead going to look like? But at the end of
yeah,
the day, you got to think letterhead, apparel,
yep.
and maybe even vehicle wraps.
Vehicle wraps, print if you want to print something on like the side of a pen, like stuff you leave behind. How flexible the logo is with scaling will kind of define what you can do and what you can't do pretty quickly. Which is always something you can ask us in the course of the process, like how I want to do this with my logo. Well, how will the logo work with this? We can answer that question in real time because we're always emailing back and forth with you.
What a great
Uh,
point.
yeah. So let's see. So yeah, the more modern logo would probably work better for something like commercial inspections. And the difference between like a more modern logo versus a more classic logo is going to be basically that the fonts are like these sans serif and serif fonts. All right, so a sans serif font is a font that just doesn't have the funny little old caps on it, right? Like the
Uh-huh.
old style, like little feet on letters. That tends to be like a more formal layout. And some of those fonts don't scale quite as well. Um, and they can be less flexible. You have to be careful when you're picking fonts, but generally that's the difference between something that's more modern and more classic. And depending on where you live and work, that's going to feed into all of that stuff as well. Like the people you're working with, how old they are,
Mhm.
or how young they are, that's always going to
Oh.
inform that stuff. Um, so let's go quickly through just logo styles, which would be on the questionnaire as well. Like an emblem logo is going to be more elaborate, but and you can fit more detail into it, but it won't hold up as well to scaling and can also
Mhm.
have limitations with things like embroidery.
Mhm.
Um, just because they get so detailed and the text gets so small that the thread can't actually match the letters. Um, so while it can be an interesting logo approach, it does have limitations that you should be aware of. Um, Wordmark logo is great for something like commercial inspection because it's just based on the font and the words, which means you're not what you're telling people right up front is what your name is. And you're sort of giving that a bit of a character. But there's nothing in the way that's sort of boxing you in to like a singular part of the profession because you're just using the name.
Mhm.
And that stuff can hold up really well to scaling. A lot of major companies will work with wordmark logos just because of how flexible they are. Same goes for letterform logos. Would be a good approach for like a commercial inspection company because again, you're not stating up front like this is what I do. Um, Pictorial logos. That's a logo that's with a picture integrated into the image, like either more or less complicated. Um, and the pictorial logo will actually start to box you in depending on the types of images you use. With something like oak leaf, which is one of the examples I have here, that's more open because you're just like you're kind of maybe referencing a geographic region there, but he's not
Mhm.
saying um, it does say home inspections on the bottom, but if you wanted to change and to go to commercial inspections, all he has to do is take the home off. And he is not like limited there.
Yeah. So if I was in Northern California and I called myself Redwood Commercial Inspections,
Yeah.
then we could have this beautiful stoic tree
Yeah.
or redwood leaf there, and that would make a lot of sense geographically.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's just another thing that can help. A logo can also help define the area you work in, right? Like it
Mhm.
can help people to know they're right away from the image on the top that they're working with someone in their local area. So it's
Mhm.
just a way of quickly communicating. And the important thing there being quickly.
Yes.
uh, Abstract logos would be another good like commercial thing because an abstract logo doesn't, it kind of looks like something, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not a very specific thing. So it's just like a series of shapes. Um, and they usually tend towards being like pretty clear and modern looking.
Mhm.
Um, Character logos are like more personality based. It could work. They tend again uh like the emblem logo, they can be more complicated. So you might run into issues with embroidery again and some issues with scaling. Um, But those are just some of the options and approaches for different types of logo design.
And so you'll when you send out these questionnaires, you're going to ask, what do you like? What's your style?
Yeah.
Things like that, so that you can start honing in on.
Yes. Yeah, we pay attention to all of the questions in this because um yeah, every answer to this helps me to understand what it is you're looking for. So we pay attention to all of the information in these questionnaires. And
That's brilliant.
I'll walk you through like a questionnaire a little bit later and show you kind of what the answers were and how it fed into the actual logo.
This is such an awesome service. I remember, oh, good grief, maybe 25 years ago, I used a logo service and I had zero communication and zero one-on-one. It was, these are what I like. Well, then here's your five back, pick your one you like.
Yeah, yeah.
And, and it really didn't have this honing or help with my stylistic approach that this is providing. So this is excellent. I'm hoping all the InterNACHI members are taking advantage of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's to work directly with a person. Like again, we're sending out this questionnaire, but we're also interacting in email. So I can in real time let you know how things will work or won't work, or let you know some of the limitations of different choices ahead of time. One of the things I've run into multiple times is people will try and just drop LLC off their name.
Yeah.
And we've had people who had to redesign stuff in the past, right? Because some states require that LLC stays in your name. So they've had to like redesign things. So it's better just to know up front, like your state might require this.
Yeah.
So you don't want to have to reprint everything again,
Well,
or
that
redo
that is
stuff.
so that is so absolutely interesting. It makes me think that when you transition between residential and commercial inspections, many times you lose the imaginary boundary of a
Mm.
state,
Hmm.
because most states, there are a few that have it, but most states do not regulate commercial inspections.
Oh,
And
that's
so I
interesting.
could be in beautiful Massachusetts and do work in Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maine, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, because I can get to them in only a few hour drive.
Well, that's
And
amazing.
so when you're logo creating, you want to think about, can I use LLC or can I use LLC in those
Mm.
other spaces?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting point, that you got to kind of think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah. If your perimeter is wider, like that changes a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, like we ask what imagery you'd like to use in the logo, and we offer an opportunity later to download images. I go through colors, like I go through
Mhm.
cool saturated, which is going to be more bright. Saturated is just a longer word of saying something is like a brighter color versus a more
Mhm.
muted color. But like cool saturated, warm saturated, and then cool and warm, like more muted, toned down colors. And then down here at the bottom, neutral. Um, yeah. So let's see. We also we have just some basic logos you can pick, which are the closest to the sort of style you're wanting for your own logo. Um, and we have like a pretty wide range here. But these sort of visual things that we put into the questionnaire, these are the things that are they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? This
Yeah.
tells me so much more than someone trying to manually type and explain to me the kind of logo they're looking for, because I actually have a picture I can reference. So I pay a lot of attention to like the answers that come with an image. Um, let's see what else. This is the place where you can just drag and drop an image for reference. Um, Obviously, we can't copy anything because everything is copyright protected. You
Mhm.
can't just take an image off of Google and use that as your logo, because that'll get you sued. So I don't recommend that approach. But Yeah.
So creating a logo that's got a red background with white script and
Mm.
that looks like a famous cola brand would not be ideal.
No, that's that'll you probably will find out pretty quickly that you'll get a letter in the mail that you probably don't want. You don't want to like start out your company by like throwing everything away. That's not perfect.
That's brilliant.
Um yeah, so and last question is just like what is it about the logos you selected that you like? And we just say if you have information here, be as thorough as possible. Um and most of that is just like about all the visuals. We have colors listed you pick. I have words, descriptive words in here that you can
Uh-huh.
pick based that help you define how you want your logo to look. And then the last question, which is 13, is just like, is there anything you'd like to tell us about yourself, business, and your goals that might factor into the logo design? And what unique skills do you have that could benefit your clients that can be conveyed in a logo? Like all of this stuff is just what feeds into how you can help people understand you and your experience. Because
Mhm.
that's some of that, like all is wrapped in the whole branding package.
Yeah.
And a logo is trying to condense that information into like the most quickly and easily communicated thing, which is always a challenge, but it's good to think through all of this stuff ahead of time.
I know for me, I'm always thinking about my color palette,
Yeah,
and like for me personally, there's only if you go into my closet, there's only 3 or 4 colors.
yeah,
Of all the different shirts that I wear for work, that I want to make sure that I have a logo that complements the color or is a contrast to the color instead of being muted. Oh, they
yeah,
had a
yeah,
black shirt with a black logo. Oh, that's brilliant. That worked out well.
yeah.
So
That's another thing actually, and I'll actually just switch over to here now.
yeah.
Let's see. I'll go over to this page. So another thing a logo should be able to do is you should be able to swap it. A well-designed logo, you should be able to swap to black and white like that. It should be perfectly clean to have the logo translate into black and white for the exact reason that you're talking about. Like,
Good.
I wear black shirts. I like my logos on black shirts.
Yeah.
Great. Put a white logo on a black shirt, and it will
How?
always work. Um, so so the logo should be flexible enough that while the color is part of the branding, the logo also works like when it is simplified down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I sort of wanted to quickly run through. You have this logo on your website,
We
and
do. We
it
do.
would be a good example of like a good commercial inspections logo. But I can show you sort of I pulled a screenshot from the questionnaire that I just ran through. So this guy picked like a more modern style, which was to refer back to the image you saw before is this, and he picked this Hosslog Home logo. So um all of this information feeds into how I'm going to design and think through what his logo is going to look like. So you can see a clear relationship between like the Titan logo that I made here and the Hosslog Home logo. Like they have a
Uh-huh.
lot of similarities. Um, and he also noted that he wanted it to be simple and easy to read, which is what this is. And this T is great because you could even take something like this and put it like you know what a favicon is?
I don't.
A favicon. Let's go through that. That's super fun. So
Yeah,
this icon, can you see my pointer on the screen?
I can.
So the little icon you have on the top here, this is a favicon. Like
Oh,
wherever you
okay.
see like a little logo.
Yeah.
Um, and if your logo is really simple, you can just drop it into that tiny box and you'll still be able to tell what it is. So the more simple the logo is, the more it holds up to like that kind of application.
Oh, I could put that on my golf balls.
You could put that on your or a pen, right? You can
Yeah,
if the logo
exactly.
is it becomes really flexible if it's really clean and can hold up to scaling well.
Yeah.
Um, Let's
That's
see.
brilliant.
Yeah.
New word in my vocabulary.
Favicon.
Abacon.
So- All right. Let's see. So I actually wanted to go through just some basic mistakes and that I'll see in logos and explain as well as I can why they're mistakes and why they cause problems.
I think that'll be
Um,
valuable.
yeah. So uh something you don't want in a logo is a drop shadow. Like when you see like a text with a little shadow cast behind it.
Yes.
The reason that is a problem is because a drop shadow is always a raster effect. And
Mhm.
a raster effect just means that the effect is made with small, tiny pixels. So like little squares that go from light to dark. But in this range of colors, you have thousands of colors. And the reason that's an issue is a t-shirt company needs a color, right? Because they're going to burn a screen. So they don't have
Mhm.
1,000 colors. So they don't have a straightforward way to recreate this effect. So you need something uh, that doesn't rely on like a drop shadow
Mhm.
in order to work. And the same goes for things like gradients. You can use a gradient on something like a website or a digital print because they can print lots of colors, right? But when it comes
Mhm.
to other print jobs, that's another reason why you want the logo to be able to work as a single color image, is because you need to be able to drop back down. Yeah, yeah,
So
totally.
like
Like
my
you,
coffee cup, which is an ombre color,
yeah,
would never work for a logo because it's just you can't reproduce it.
yeah. There's like too many colors in it. Or you could reproduce it. It's just that it would be very expensive to reproduce.
Okay.
And what you want with the reason people limit color selection in logo designs, and the reason you have that single bright red for the commercial inspections logo with the lion, is because printing one color is a lot less expensive than printing, five or six or seven colors
Mhm.
on some forms of materials. Like t-shirt printing, the more colors you have, the more it's going to cost to print it.
Yep. Yep. But if you're looking
Um,
for a $9 t-shirt, don't do that type of logo.
yeah, exactly. And the other, let's see. So like metallic effects are still like a
Yeah.
gradient, right? Because they're built out of lots of colors. Um, and while you can use them as like on like a website or like with digital printing, you have to be aware that you need the logo to work in black. Um, Another thing, like, and I just set up some examples down here on the
Yeah.
bottom, are like there are universes of terrible fonts online. Like there are so many fonts that as soon as you scale them down, they start looking funky, or the spacing is weird, or they have things built into them that are a problem, like this tiny little line. It looks
Yeah.
fine when the logo is like this big, but the logo is going to be like this on a website, and it starts looking blurry, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, because the line, what line thin lines do when they're grouped together, is they start to cause optical effects, right? It does things that mess with your eyes, that make you think something is blurry when it's not blurry. Which is why it's better to pick a big, heavy, like a more of a bold font holds up better when the logo is small. Um,
But when I sit there trying to be all Gaelic and have a lot of fun with like the Bailey that you have there, which looks like I should be in an Irish pub, as
yeah,
soon as I start scaling that, I've lost it.
yeah, yeah. Well, the A is a really is a lot larger than the B. There are just
Yeah.
weird sizing issues with this. And the L and the Y here, like
Yeah.
there's like there's a big gap here, so
Yeah.
it doesn't look quite right. And the funny thing is some fonts, like this particular font has a bunch of accents on all the cap letters,
Hmm.
but it works fine when you when you use the lowercase. It's just that you can't have this big swoosh on everything because it looks funky.
Yeah.
Um, so some fonts, just not using all caps, you can get around the issue, but you sort of have to know what works and what doesn't work. Um, with something like this, you're back in the same boat where the thin lines start to make it look like kind of grayish. It starts to blur a little bit. And this is a font for like a death metal band, so probably
Yeah.
not for commercial home inspections. Like,
It depends on your attitude. I mean, if you're doing something, you're creating a logo that's the way you want to do it. I guess more power to you. But you're right. You want to be able to appeal to a much broader mass than
yeah,
than a micro society of just death metal warehouses.
yeah. That's the other. I mean, that's the other reason I recommend like going with something more modern for a commercial inspection company because it keeps the audience as broad as possible,
Mhm.
um, which is a good approach. If you're working with more people, if you're working with companies that have like boards, you're working with larger groups of people, um, and so people have strong opinions. So the
Yeah.
more simplified the logo is, the less you have someone complain that they think you have a creepy font.
Well, yeah, and you've been helping us out because I know this year at the Pro Convention, I'm going to do a session called the first 5 steps
Mm,
of building a commercial business, and one of them is your branding, and
yeah.
you've created. Thank you very much. It's the first time I've been able to thank you in person. Some really good examples of pro and con examples of
Hmm.
this one works better than this one because it provides this. Because at the end of the day, in commercial inspections, we're probably not dealing with direct referrals from the
Mm,
traditional home inspection referral side. We're actually dealing with more internet searches and discoveries through SEO and different online sources. And so having a logo that is immediately creating a visceral opinion in the
mm.
affirmative
Yeah, yeah,
versus Bailey in a negative is critical.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I think um yeah, the more broad ranging your audience is, the more you have to the more flexible the logo needs to be, because the more people it has to appeal to, especially if
Mhm.
it's going to be the first impression that someone gets of you, right? Because you're not passing them a business card, they're just finding you
Yeah.
online. So the
Yeah.
first impression they're going to have of you is what's in the top corner of your page, um, which matters. It matters like all the other parts of a business does.
It's absolutely critical. I think you said it at the very, very beginning when you talked about what image, not name, but what image do you want? If you have a giant silhouette of a sloped roof house,
Yeah,
uh, and say Titan property inspections, immediately I don't have any confidence that Titan does anything but houses.
yeah, yeah.
And
It
so
it,
I
it
want to have something that's got a very broad appeal.
yeah, and also doesn't fence you in
Yeah.
or pertain to like the exact thing you do. Because a logo isn't necessarily it isn't for showing people what you do. That's a lot of the confusion about what a logo
Mhm.
is for. A logo is to help people remember your name. It's just to
Well,
give people a shortcut to like remembering your specific company name and to have it stick in their head.
mhm.
Um, like there's a realty down the street from me, named Mary Fox Realty. And their logo is a little fox. And I have no use for this information, right? I don't need to hire a realty, but I remember the tiny little icon, and I remember that the fox goes with the fox. Like it's just a shortcut for making something stick in someone's head.
Yeah. I mean, I drive down the road, and if I see this magic kiss, up in a logo, immediately I'm thinking I need some ice cream. People, because of Dairy Queen,
Yeah.
people are not going to drive down the road and see your logo and go, I think I need a commercial inspection. I think
No.
you need to use this to reinforce your prominence in the society, but also to create a remembrance. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's a complete package.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the same as like the Titan logo, right? It's just a big
Yeah.
capital T, and it's just to help people tie the T to the Titan. Um, it's not trying to show like 100 tiny little pieces of property, like right, every possible kind of building stacked over the top of the logo, because
Mm-mm.
that would get so busy that again you would run into the same optical effects that I talked about with like this logo, where you have these thin lines tightly
Yeah.
grouped. Um, the more busy your logo is, the more it can distort when it scales down. So it's
Mhm.
generally better to use something that's more simple, because you won't have to like wrestle with it, and have to have it larger than it needs to be on the top of a website, just so that people can make out what the picture is. Because you don't want people trying to figure out what the picture over your logo is. You just want them to go, what's this company name? And does this look professional? And like for it to register as quickly as possible.
Excellent.
Even with something like a yard sign, right? That's something that people are looking at from 20 yards away while driving 35 miles an hour. They're
Yeah.
not like going to examine it. Like,
Yeah. They won't even see the spelling error in it until they get halfway down the
no,
road. Wait a minute.
that's not. What did that say?
You spell college wrong, like the bad t-shirts that are out there.
Oh, that's funny.
So
Yeah.
in your creation, like I look at this Titan, and I love it. I mean, if this was an example of not a real company, and you designed it just as an example, and good for you. Somebody better steal that quickly, because it's absolutely awesome. In
This one actually belongs to a company.
Yeah, does it? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Good for them. Because this is in my introduction to commercial inspections class that I teach every couple of weeks, and I use this logo all the time. I love it.
Ah,
Um,
great.
when you're doing your questionnaire, let's call it
Yeah.
your intake form, are you asking questions like, are you only going to do residential, or will you be doing commercial as well, to
Oh,
help
interesting.
make sure they don't paint themselves in a logo hole?
We don't, but we should actually start including that, because
Is
that wasn't an issue before. Now it is.
no, now that we're getting so large, and dominating our market space. Because I'll tell you, Levi, I sit there, and I'm lucky. I'm a lucky guy, because every 3 weeks I'm somewhere in the country, and I'm teaching the introduction to commercial inspections course,
Uh-huh.
and I'll have 15 to 30 students sitting in the room, and they're all, I mean, I'm telling you, everybody is proud as peaches of their logos. And I can see, that was one that was created by the InterNACHI team, or this one, maybe not. And I'll just say nice things, but so many of them all say home inspection very
Yeah, yeah.
proudly. And they'll get through our, it's about lunchtime on the Wednesday class, and they're going to go, well, shucks. Now I've got to change. How do I change? What do I change? Who's going to
Yeah.
change? And because they've painted themselves into a marketing corner.
Yeah. And just with a
And
word. Like
one word,
yeah, and
one word.
I talk about the names too. Like names, like the name you're using can you can end up having to change that if you do that poorly. Like as soon as you start using specific words like you're already communicating. So it's better to think through, what am I going to do with this company? What do I eventually want to do with this company? And just integrate it ahead of time, so that you don't have to do the whole throw everything out, halfway through. It's just it's not a great way to end up having to work.
Yeah. I mean, I've been lucky enough. I'm a knock on wood. This is my 35th year in this industry. And what if 25 years ago I called it Klaus House Inspection. And I spelled house Haus just to be literal. And you designed this fabulous logo. And because my last name is spelled Claus, you decide you want to put a little red hat with some white fringe and a little tassel on top of the toque. And so here we go. We have
Santa themed logos.
Huh?
Santa themed logos.
Yeah.
Santa themed logos.
Because Santa Claus is there's no trademark. We got that one. We're not going to get that. We're not going to get that cola company sue us.
That won't cause problems at all.
No. So we do all this. Well, I never thought about 35 years. What am I going to do with the company? I can't sell it because you're not going to be it. Because I pigeonholed myself into using my last name, and then using something that was even pigeonholed in the houses, and then even using something that was so viscerally solid on the holiday season that why would I want to hire Chris Kringle to do an inspection in July?
Yeah.
So I've scratched through 7 different positive boxes and made them all negatives by just trying to be cute.
Yeah. And especially with something like commercial inspection, where someone's first impression of you is just like the logo at the top. Like you don't want to be doing that kind of thing right from the get-go, because that's just everyone's first impression is like the logo they see at the top of the page.
Yeah. We spent the first, we incorporated in 88. And so all the way from 88 through 2015, we maintained the name, and then it said home inspections.
Okay.
And as soon as I, in 2015-16, created commercial, all we did is change home to property.
Yeah.
And because our logo was very innocuous to, it didn't qualify as residential, it didn't qualify as commercial. It was just a word. And it worked out. I think it worked out fine for us. We didn't really have to make an appreciable investment because because half, out of the 30 inspectors we had on staff, we could slowly introduce the new logos on shirts because nobody read that one word close enough.
No. And I think, I mean, having a logo that's flexible enough to edit quickly, that can also help you, right? Which is the upside of like having something that's more clean versus more integrated. Like like an emblem logo, like let me see if I can find that's Landmark.
Well, that's a good looking logo.
That's on your site too.
That's the one you created for our fake company.
Yeah. This is Matthews, right? So this is property inspections, but what if I had used home inspections and used the maximum amount of space in this bar to fit that word? All of this information is trapped, right? Yeah. So I'm going to have to scale it. I'm going to have to scale it down and change everything about this. So this is a more complicated change than, say, adding or deleting a word, which is what you would get with something like this. Like if I wanted to say property or commercial, like you can adjust something like this more easily than something like this. Right. So it's just, again, like some of this comes down to preference, but it's good to know up front, like that some of the ways you format the logo will make it more and less flexible. And you might not know that just coming into this with no information.
Now, when you're creating logos, Levi, are you required, is the end user, the InterNACHI member, are they required to have InterNACHI certified in script on the logo?
They are.
Good.
We can swap that out for the commercial
It'd be
CCPIA now.
you, so you can do that, but it's probably not advisable to have both. It's probably
No,
too busy.
I would pick one. I would pick one or the other. Just because uh, with the logo, it's a smaller detail, and I try and use it as an accent, so that it's not necessarily dominating the logo,
Yep.
but it's present in the logo.
So
Um,
for my recommendation for those on here, you're going to have to make a personal choice. Whether you want to say InterNACHI certified or you can have CCPIA certified.
yeah,
And it probably really going to depend on where you get your business and how much effort you're going to place into your commercial efforts. But I can assure you this: on the top of our ComSop book, I don't want to grab one because it'll look weird on my background. But on the top of our ComSop book, it says created by the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors and the
yeah,
Certified Commercial Property Inspectors Association. So you have both of them that are on our ComSop very visually. So I don't think having InterNACHI certified puts you in a hole.
no,
I would love to see CCPA certified on them, like you have
yeah,
here on Landmark. But nonetheless, if you're allowed to, as in your services, Levi, give them the choice. I think that's fabulous, and let everybody make their choice accordingly.
yeah. And I have had people add CCPIA onto like logos. In the past year or two, I've had like a handful of them so far.
Yeah, but this is the
Um,
one you've created for us
yeah,
on our company.
yeah.
And this is the one that I use on all of our on all of our collateral that I use for examples for our members.
Oh, cool. Yeah, this is yeah, I like this just because like the idea that the landmark is this specific symbol and then it just
Yeah,
integrates directly into the word is really clean. I also like this kind of orange warm brick color because
I
it can
I,
tie
I was
into a
lucky.
building.
I was lucky enough in the mid 2000s, right during the crash. I was consulting for a company that was based in Europe, and all of their collateral, 100%, was all the warm orange.
Huh, cool.
Everything we did was that color, and that was the first time I ever saw it. And I got stuff floating around here still to this day that is that color because they've done so much quantitative research
Hmm.
on what clients grab to versus what
Yeah.
clients don't. And that was the color that they said was the number one color for client appeal.
Huh, that's interesting.
It was
Yeah,
wild.
color is interesting. The more you learn about it. Red,
Yeah.
red, like there are associations with red where like if you see a lot of red, it just will raise. They've done tests where it will like raise the human heart rate and it looks like caution, right? So depending on uh and this can also change based on like local logos or like college colors, right? The college of your town. If they use a lot of red, you probably aren't going to have the same kind of reaction as someone somewhere else because
Yeah.
just becomes cultural context.
Yeah.
So like all of the information around you is always feeding into like what colors you use in a logo,
Isn't that
which
something?
is yeah, it's just crazy.
But yeah, I
um
mean this image with the spires and the and it doesn't give anybody any other knowledge or
no.
impression that this is nothing but a commercial property inspections company that's certified.
Yeah. And it's simple and architectural and it's one color. Like so, I
Yeah,
mean, again, if you have to drop it back to black and white, it works just as
yeah,
well.
yep,
Sometimes I'll stack text like this to keep the text larger when the logo scales down.
uh-huh.
Um, I'm always trying to keep uh, the important information visible. So the way I organize that information in a logo is always being informed, like, well, how how small can I get the thing and still read it? Like I'm always zooming out. A lot of people when they're designing a logo, they're doing like this thing, right?
Yeah.
They're looking at it like this, but the only way that you're ever going to see a logo like this is if you're like standing in front of a van with your nose pressed to it.
Yeah.
Most people are
Yeah.
going to see your logo, at some about this scale. Like even holding a business card, right? You're holding it at an arm's length.
Yeah.
You just have to remember the thing is made to be and to work when it is small, and smaller probably than you expect it to be.
Yeah. That's fabulous.
Um,
So I guess I got two things. One, just in case for yourself, I was told, and now I've had to accept it. It's not a lion. It's a gargoyle.
It is a gargoyle.
Because gargoyles protect the building, just like property inspectors protect our client. And so, just in case that comes up in your annual job review,
Gotcha. It's definitely a gargoyle. It's not a
definitely
lion.
now a gargoyle. I've that is comically enough probably the most common question I get on the very first day of every class I teach.
That's so
Is
funny.
is it's a gargoyle, and now
Yeah.
that I see it, it's a gargoyle. It's not a griffin. It's a gargoyle.
we were we were trying to come up with a symbol, and we went through a lot of different variations of that. That was the thing that turned out being like the best representation of something for a commercial property inspections company that also was visually interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
a building is like a big rectangle, so there's only so much you can do with that. But like the shape of the character of the gargoyle, definitely not a lion,
Yeah.
is interesting to look at. Like it just captures your attention, so it worked pretty well for that.
Yeah. 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 So I guess the key takeaway is that your transition between residential to commercial
Mhm.
doesn't have to be that terrible when it comes to
No,
your personal branding and your logos. You're set up to be able to assist that so long
yes,
as you're a member of both associations.
yeah, and I can change and edit. Um, I've done it before, like where I'll just drop property in, or I'll turn something into commercial inspections. Like we keep all of the logo files, so I can go back and make adjustments, and they don't take any time. And if you've already purchased the logo through us, like I can just make those edits on the fly. Um, if assuming like I'm around, like or not on vacation, I usually do it in the same day. Um,
Excellent.
so yeah, all this stuff is quick and we can fix it because we work directly with you. So you have our contact information and everything, and you can always get a hold of us with like questions or um, like these kind of minor changes. They're easy to make.
Terrific. Because as I say, at the Pro Convention this year in Orlando, I'm going to be doing a session on the first 5 steps. We have an online course called Transitioning Between Residential Commercial. We have a lot of information on our website on successful branding. And I think it all begins with this and
Yeah.
making sure that you put the first, I mean, I guess for lack of a, let me throw out another name, cornerstone. When you place the cornerstone on the building,
Mhm.
that's the most important step to your growth pattern. And I think, Levi, you hold a big part of somebody's success.
Yeah. I mean, I hold a part of it, but like it's like anything else, right? You have to
Yeah.
a good logo is not going to make you good at your job. Like all of
No,
the other components, it
no.
informs people that you're professional, that you are interested in being a professional, but ultimately you always have to do the job well.
Yeah. Oh, but sometimes we're sitting here, we're just a bunch of inspectors, right? So we're sitting here and wherever we're located, and we come up with this great idea. And sometimes we need to be told too, it's probably not the best, or hey, attaboy, we can run
Mhm.
with that. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think your experience and the hundreds of logos you've created certainly
Thousands,
will
thousands at this point.
thousands,
11
thousands,
years of creating logos.
thousands at this point. Well, do you have any other pearls of wisdom you want to share with our group?
Something just quickly, and this is hard with this bar. Anyway, let me go to our marketing page. We do actually have resources for. I've been recently doing videos where I walk through and break down like logo designs. And there are YouTube videos where I just explain what works or doesn't work, or like mostly what I'm talking about is what works with a logo design and why I made some of the choices I did. And some of that can help demystify like the process of thinking like this is magic, right? It has its own sets of rules like design stuff, and since you don't know what the rules are, like it just ends up being like this is made out of magic and in a vacuum, and so I walk through some logos that work and explain why they work and what works about them. And we also have like some introductions with marketing, some descriptions on like naming. Like there are just a lot of resources on our marketing site that can help just help get started, just thinking through some of this stuff. Because you should do the thinking through before you place an order or before you name.
Yeah.
You should name your company well first, because I have to work with that. Like I'm stuck with what you give me on the name. Like work through a good name first, and that will give me a good starting point for a logo.
Well, there's so many. Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because we'll have somebody that might incorporate close inspections, yeah, incorporated. But I might have painted myself in the corner for that. So I might have to create a DBA or something, that might be landmark, commercial property inspections doing business as. So I can have landmark on my logo now. And, so I might have to rebrand or rename based on some other criteria. So I think those resources that you just showed, again, for the InterNACHI member, those are available. For the CCPIA. Are those available on the YouTube without being a member, or are those only member?
I think they're just available on YouTube. They might be only member.
Okay.
They're on our channel. I don't know how our channel is accessed necessarily, because I'm pretty brand new at this, but
Yeah,
it's
you
in
and me both.
the stream of InterNACHI videos. Like it's in the marketing category.
which is a vast bag of information.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm part of a
I can just think of the videos that we've
fraction.
created in the last 2 years as being we had to create a search engine just for that.
Yeah, there's so many.
Yeah. So I guess at the end of the day, do your homework. There's a service out there for dual membership. If you're a member of CCPIA and a member of InterNACHI, you do have a resource available to you, and that's you, Levi.
Yeah. Yep. For anyone who's part of InterNACHI, like, yeah, we can design logos, and you can ask us questions about names. Like we're always around. Like I'm around all week. So
Yeah, that's terrific. I want to thank you for taking this time and speaking with us, because building your business is, it begins with this. You're building a commercial inspection business, either on the back of a home inspection business or a brand new entity. And frankly, there's if you're building a business on as a brand new entity and you're commercial only, joining InterNACHI is not going to be a waste of your resources. The information, the expertise, and the 30 years of experience InterNACHI has is certainly going to be a valuable tool for you, regardless if you ever do a house inspection or not.
Yeah. There's just a lot of people working for every member here, so I'm one of them. But
yeah. Well, Thank you, Levi, for taking the time. I appreciate it. We're all here for one reason, to
Yeah.
build the inspection business.
All right. Well, thank you, Rob.